continuing into this Arctic Cat 500, which is the identical to the Suzuki Vinson 500 motor. We've got the recoil pull starter pulled off at this time. I've showed you that in a separate video when we were adjusting valves. So that's the reason why we have that recoil pull starter off. We also have the cup ready to come off of here. You had a 14mm nut that you could pull off. Now you don't have to do that to adjust the valves. We had this pulled off already. So pull that cup off of here. And then you've got a seal in behind here. And that's sometimes why this can stick on there. That's your recoil pull starter cup there. Check top dead center. You've got to have this cap pulled off of here. So we have that loosened up. Then you've got 8mm bolts all the way around here. You've got your water pump assembly here. So underneath of here is going to be your impeller. Then to remove this cover here, I like to use an impact driver. I use the Matco impact driver. We put a P3 bit on there, and then we take and pull this cover off. You can see we've already removed 2 of those bolts there. We're going to remove the other 2 at this time. Just take and do a slam on there. That'll turn that the right direction. You'll be able to spin that right off. Now we can grab our DeWalt impact driver, remove that screw and that one. Now we've got our impeller or our water pump that's going to be able to pull right out of there. There it is there. Underneath of here, we've got your impeller. Here's your shaft that comes, and that'll actually hook up to your part of your transmission there, so it'll constantly be spinning when your engine is spinning. So removing those 2 screws there that we just did will allow you to open this up and get in there. To drain the coolant, I've had a couple questions on that. If you want to drain the coolant out of the motor and out of the radiator, pull this 10mm plug on the bottom of your water pump, and all that coolant will drain out. You also want to open the cap on your radiator. So you'll have quite a bit of force coming out of there. That coolant will be coming out of there pretty quick at first. As soon as you pull this 10mm, then it'll slow down. By that time, you've only drained maybe a half of a quart of coolant at that time. And then you crack your radiator cap and remove that, so all the way at the front of your four-wheeler, and then you'll have coolant just gushing out of here. So it's all, that system's completely sealed up, so when you remove that radiator cap, more coolant will come out very, very quickly. So just be careful of that, knowing where your drain pan is, because it'll splash everywhere. So got our water pump off of there, removed all of our 8mm around this cover here. All right, those are all off. Now we'll be able to remove this stator cover. So we've got our gear selector here. I've showed you how to remove that. When I adjusted the valves, I just got that out of the way so you can see a little bit better. And now we've got this cover. There is going to be a little bit of force because your stator and your flywheel have some magnetic pull. That does make it a little bit of a challenge to remove off of there. A lot of times you can get your fingers in behind there and pull this off. If not, you can grab a mallet or a dead blow here and just tap on a couple different areas. So you can see it's loosened up at this time. Then we'll just get our fingers in there when we can and just kind of work that off of there. There we go. We've got that stator removed. We've got our, whoa. Okay, well now we know where the problem is. So we have our starter here. We've got an idler gear here, and you can see both this cover and this case here are broken, and that's where our problem was. So this four-wheeler wouldn't have been able to start if we had our starter drive hooked up and ready to go because of these gears being broken and falling apart. So that was our problem. Now we know. This charging system still looks like it's in good shape. We'll test that. I'll show you how to do that. Flywheel here looks like it's in good shape. I'll show you how to remove that here in a second. To remove our stator, just 3 8mm bolts here, 2 8mm bolts here, and then this gasket here is able to just be pushed out of the way. Another 8mm bolt here, then you can just lift that stator out of there. So that's how you can replace your stator. To remove your flywheel, I'll get to that next. All right, removing the flywheel now. It's very important to follow this step here because I don't want you to damage this crankshaft. This crankshaft goes from here all the way through, obviously the center of our case is there, and into the other side. If you damage this and all you were trying to do would be remove this flywheel here, you're going to end up having to split that case. So pay very close attention. Second thing that I want you to do is if you need this tool, I've got a link below. Make sure you buy the correct tool. If you buy the tool that doesn't have the right thread pitch, sometimes it does left-hand threads versus right-hand threads. Sometimes this isn't long enough. Sometimes this isn't long enough. Sometimes it doesn't include a very, very important tool that I'm going to show you next. You want to make sure you buy the correct tool for this job, or your $500 flywheel is going to end up costing you a completely new motor or just a completely new crankshaft, and you're going to end up having to split that case. So very important, follow these directions here on this next part. Grab an impact driver or whatever you're going to use to remove this nut here. It's a 22 millimeter nut here. I like to use the impact sockets, and I like to use an impact driver here. Put that on there. It's electric 20 volt impact. Does a fantastic job. Remove that. Now, see how easy that was? Make sure that that gets removed. The next step that you're going to do is obviously buy this tool, link below. Now, this is important. Make sure you have this tool. I've seen hundreds of crankshafts destroyed because they don't use this important part of the tool. And this will come with my kits here. So the flywheel pullers that I sell will include this, and you want to make sure you have this piece. You also want to make sure you have the right flywheel puller. So many times flywheels get screwed up because guys think that they can just go and order any flywheel puller. They order the wrong one. They screw up the threads on your flywheel, or they damage your crankshaft. Please don't do that. Grab this cap here, thread this on. You're actually threading it onto your crankshaft. Spin that down as far as you can go, snug it up. Now grab your actual flywheel puller there and start threading that on. Make sure your threads are straight. Make sure you're going in there correctly. Spin this on as far as you can. If you haven't got it on very far and you didn't order my flywheel puller, then you may have the wrong thread pitch on your flywheel puller. And if that's the case, stop, order the correct one. Spin this all the way on there. You should have it completely seated, and it should be seated onto this flywheel completely. So spin it on there. If you need to, grab a wrench, tighten it up some more. You want to make sure that it's good and secure on there. Next, you're going to grab an impact driver, and you're going to turn this, and it's going to run it all the way in. All right, we've got our 24 millimeter socket now put on there. You're going to take this, and we're going to tighten this down until it's seated. We're going to take, and it's going to be loud, so you're not going to be able to hear me, but I'm going to thread this in until you feel this flywheel pop up. Now, it's not going to pop up very far, so make sure, what I like to do is put my hand on here, and a lot of times I'll take a rag, put it on here too, and I'll feel it pop up, and then I'll stop. And make sure you stop, or you can damage some stuff. Okay, you feel it pop up there? Okay, once you feel it pop up there, you're not going to be able to pull it up very far until you remove this puller and then remove that cap that I had you put on. Now, if you did not have that cap, if you didn't order the kit from us and you didn't receive that cap, what's going to happen is this bolt that you're threading in here is going to come down. It's going to hit your crankshaft here. It's either going to bend your crankshaft in, or it's going to damage your crankshaft threads. And I've seen it before where it's bent this entire shaft here, and then your flywheel's turning super fast in there, and your recoil pull starter cup is going to be doing one of these, and it's going to destroy that seal, destroy that case, potentially destroy that stator. So that's why it's so important that you have this cap, you have the correct size puller, and you do it in that order. Okay, once we get that the cap removed there, we can take and remove our entire flywheel and our starter gear. So flywheel is removed, that flywheel is in good condition. Now this starter gear here, we've got a woodruff key that's going to hold us in, so you want to make sure that you remove this. When you remove this, you want to make sure that you put it in a place that you're going to remember to put it back in. A lot of times what I'll do is just take and grab it, and then I'll just take and drop it in our flywheel. That way it's there, we know where it's at. We can set that aside. We've got our starter gear here. This is our larger idler gear. And let me show you this. We've got a one-way bearing on the back of this flywheel. You can see we've got some teeth destroyed here. That would have happened when those idler gears got destroyed. But this should only spin one direction. So this direction here is the only way that it'll spin. You take and try to spin it the other way, it's not going to spin. If it does, you want to replace that bearing on the back of your flywheel. We've got a couple other gears we're going to remove here. We have 2 snap rings that we need to remove. And then these gears will just pop right out of here. You want to make sure that when you're pulling these gears, there's little pins running through them. And you want to make sure that those don't fall out and go into your bottom end. So remove this. Got that one removed. There's our pin that I was talking about. So got that removed. We've got this gear pulled, and then this one's got a little pin in there. I'm gonna grab some small pliers and pull that one out. If you don't pull this pin out here and you're splitting your case, this is actually gonna hold up your entire project. It's gonna hold this case together. You're not gonna be able to pull that case completely apart because that pin will be holding you up. It'll hit that bearing. So pay attention to that. Make sure that gets removed, but also make sure it gets put back in there when you're putting that motor back together. All right, we've got a 10 millimeter here. This is our shift detent. So when you're shifting through the gears, it'll move this smaller gear here, and that'll change you from high to low or whatever position you're moving it into. Also got our 10 millimeter nut here to remove, and this is a spring-loaded part, so you want to be careful you don't get your fingers in here. You can take and remove that, then we can take, and this spring can be removed then. All right, we have our Speedo gear here. I'm going to pull that off. We've got 2 8 millimeter bolts, and then I'm going to start removing these crankcase bolts. We're not quite ready to split this case, but we will start heading that direction. So I'm going to start removing all these 8 millimeter bolts all the way around. There's a 12 millimeter bolt here, 12 millimeter bolt here, and I think that's maybe all the 12 millimeter bolts on. Oh, there's one here. That 3 of them, I believe, on this side. We're going to flip it over there, and I think there's maybe some more on the other side. All right, so far I've got 8 millimeter bolts, so 1 and then a couple around the outside. I'm going to go ahead and remove those 12 millimeter bolts. So we've got 3 of the 12 millimeter bolts that we've removed. I'm going to go ahead and remove this Speedo gear and take and pry up on that. There's going to be a gasket in behind here, and that'll kind of seal things up for us. There's our Speedo gear here. It's electronic, so some of the older models will have a similar style to this, but there'll be a worm gear that goes down in here. This can be removed with snap ring pliers. So snap ring there. Then you've got a washer here. And then you've got a gear there. So kind of an odd shaped gear, but that'll tell you your miles per hour. You've got a pin that comes in here. I'm gonna grab that with a small pair of pliers. That way we don't lose that. That's gonna pull out. I'm gonna set that with our other parts there. And then I've got a snap ring here. And this snap ring is gonna allow us to be able to pull this shaft out from the other side. So I'm gonna remove that one there, set that with those parts. Now we're ready to pull that Speedo shaft out the other side there when it comes time to do that. I'm gonna flip this motor over at this time. We're gonna pull our clutches off there the rest of the way. There's a sensor over there that we need to pull, and then we'll get ready to split this case here.